Hello everyone. A while ago I have uploaded a video about how you can use GCP Cloud Functions to start and stop VMs in Compute Engine. Well, while this was something that I liked and it was something amazing, it still lacked something very important and very critical, which is the security. You see, when I did that video, I set up the function to accept unauthorized or unauthenticated requests. Basically, that's a very bad idea and you don't need to do that, and you should not do this in production. So in this video, I will cover that point, how you can secure your cloud function, and basically there are many ways for this. There are many methods for that as well. And I will show you one way using the App Engine and IAP, which stands for Identity-Aware Proxy in GCP. This is something really interesting, and while this focuses on the App Engine and Cloud Functions, but it will just let you imagine and see a lot of opportunities in utilizing IAP in your daily activities and tasks in GCP. And just before I start with this, please don't forget to like this video so more people can see this. And also please consider to subscribe to the channel and get that bell button activated so that you can get notified whenever I upload any new content. And also one more point before going further, probably this video might be a little bit long, so maybe you want to check the chapters and timelines in the video description and in the video player as well, just so that you can quickly navigate between sections if you want to skip any content or anything at any point in time during this video. So the process that I'm going to demonstrate to you will require the following products and services in GCP. First of all, it will require the App Engine, which will be the front end for our setup. And then you need to use the Cloud Functions, which is where the actual function and logic that will be triggered is located. Basically, that's the backend for this setup. Next one is the IAP as mentioned, which is Identity-Aware Proxy. This will act as the authentication, which will be in front of the App Engine. So that will be the authentication point where users will log in and identify themselves. And finally, we have the IAM, which is the Identity and Access Management Service in GCP. This will act as the authorization service or authorization layer, which will control the access to the front end. Now, of course, there are some other optional components that you can use as well, such as a domain name you can use so that you can map your cloud function or app engine to this domain name so that you can then get an easily remembered URL to be used whenever you want to trigger any of the functions behind this app engine application. Now, when it comes to costs, and again, I'm going to demonstrate this process on my last video where I created a cloud function to start and stop VMs. So for my case, I should stay within the free limits of GCP. In your case, I'm not sure, but you should probably stay also within the free limits technically, unless you are going to create or build something that will be used very frequently and triggered by many users and so on. So that's for the, let's say, high level things, what we're going to need and in terms of cost and all of this. Now, in terms of prerequisites and a high level overview on the actual process and the actual steps that we're going to do here. First of all, this will work without a cloud identity organization or without a GCP organization. You can just use any Gmail account to create the project and set up this whole thing. But then the point here is you will not be able to provision users properly in terms of access control and the identities and all of this. Or in other words, you will not be able to use the cloud identity to properly follow Google's best practices in terms of security and identity and access management. This is very critical if you're having an organization and if you want to follow these best practices and if you want to be following the security standards around, which is of course very critical. And then the other point here is you will need to enable the App Engine API. Of course, before doing the API thing, you need to have a project. So once you have the project with the billing, then you will need to enable the App Engine API and the IAP API, assuming you already have Cloud Functions API enabled. The next point here is, because you will enable the IAP API to secure the App Engine service, you will need to configure a consent screen as well, which is basically the screen or the login prompt that will ask users to sign in. And the next step is you will need to have a service account to be used with the script that we're going to run on App Engine. Now, when you deploy App Engine on GCP, you will get a default service account created for that App Engine, but then we don't want to use the default service account for App Engine. We want to use a custom service account because it's much more better for us in terms of security and control and flexibility, and so on. The Cloud Functions, which is the backend for our setup here, should be configured to only accept authenticated requests, since we want to do this the right way. I have seen a lot of cases and I have seen a lot of people who complain that the Cloud Function will not accept the request, and usually the advice that they will get is to configure the Cloud Function to accept unauthenticated requests. Now, in some cases this might work, depending on the need, of course, but this is actually not a good idea at all to just let the Cloud Function accept unauthenticated requests, especially if it is triggering a workflow or if it's triggering some sort of jobs or activities in the cloud. Now, the last point here is, for all of this to work, of course, you will need the code to be used. And this is something that is available for you on GitHub. I will show you the repository and I will give you the link to the repository so that you can clone it and download the code. And of course, I will give you a little brief on the code as well so that you are aware of this. Oh yeah, and also probably you will need to type some commands using gcloud, which I hope you will be fine with. And I'm sure you will be fine. Like, why you would not be fine with that? You will need to you'll need to have gcloud or Google Cloud Platform SDK installed and authenticated and ready on your system. Or, just use the Cloud Shell if you don't want to install gcloud on your own system. You can check out my video also for how you can do this, setting up gcloud and configuring it and authenticating that. It's a very easy and simple process actually. Okay, so now into the actual stuff. And the first point here, as mentioned previously or a moment ago, is the setting up of your organization. Again, this is an optional step as mentioned, however, it will come in very handy at a later point or in the future use of your GCP in your organization. The presence of an organization entity means that you can configure permissions and organization-wide policies on the features and the services that you want to be enabled in your organization, and also it will help you in terms of billing control and billing, visibility and all of that. Now, if you want more info on how to do this, then check out the video that is linked on top right of this video. This is a very simple process that is going to only take a few minutes of your time, but it's going to add a lot of benefits later on. Now, regardless, again, if you're doing this with an organization or not, you will need a project, of course, with billing enabled, as you can see here. So this is the project that I'm going to be using, and the billing is enabled on this. This is the same project that hosts my Cloud Functions that are going to be the backend for this setup. And if you have watched the previous video about this, you will just see this same project that I have used in that video. And if you have followed along, then you probably don't need to have a new project created for your case. The next step for you here is to enable the required APIs. And again, if you followed this video or if you came into this video from the previous one, then you may already have some of these APIs enabled. Otherwise, here is the list of the APIs that you need to enable. So you'll need to enable the App Engine API and the IAP, Identity-Aware Proxy API as well. Simply go to the page of each API I enable that, or probably just type in the search here. So App Engine. You'll see the list of the results, but if you look at the Marketplace section, you will see the App Engine. Just go there and check the API if it's enabled or not. So it's enabled in my case, because if it was not enabled, it should show you here enable instead of go to App Engine. So the API is enabled for App Engine. Then you check the IAP, Identity-Aware Proxy, which is also done from here. So Identity-Aware Proxy. And again, you go to either products and pages. If there is any marketplace, you do it. Otherwise, you just go to products and pages, Identity-Aware Proxy. It should give you the status for that, if it needs to be enabled or not. So it's not enabled in my case. I will just click Enable API. It will enable the API for you. So these are the requirements for the APIs. The next step for us here is to set up the consent screen. Again, this is the login screen that the users will need to use to authenticate themselves. And this is a very simple process. You just go to the menu, then go to APIs and services, and then consent screen, OAuth consent screen. Then you need to create an application in here. So you set the application type to either an internal application or external application. The external type will require you to do some sort of verifications or validations on your domain. I'm not going to use the external really, I'm just going to use the internal application so that you can at least see how this will work. And I'm assuming when you want to configure such a thing, Cloud Functions and App Engine, all of that, it would be for something internal. Otherwise, if you're intending to use this for external stuff, you would just embed it into scripts and use a service account to authenticate without all of this stuff. So internal, then we'll click create. You just need then to fill some information here, and it's not a lot of information, at least the mandatory stuff. So the app name is the Cloud Functions. The email for support, you just type your email, for example. So yeah. So again, I'm just filling the required information here, and I'm just typing the email the developer because it's required, it seems. And then that's it. Save and continue. I'm not going to add any scoops here because again, I'm just looking to have users log in with this interface. So I'm not going to add any sensitive scoops or non-sensitive scoops. I'm just going to save and continue. And then the summary is here. So basically it's created. So that's it. Now I'm done with the consent screen. Now the next step here is creating a service account, and we will need to download a JSON key file that we are going to generate from that service account so that we can use that service account credentials in our App Engine application. So instead of granting the App Engine service account the access to invoke the Cloud Function, I'm going to let the App Engine run using its default service account. But then I'm going to create another service account so that I can grant it access to invoke the Cloud Functions. And then I'm going to make the application of the App Engine or the front end use that service account to authenticate itself to the Cloud Function service. So doing this is very easy and very straightforward. I will go to the menu again. Then I will go to IAM and Admin. Then there is an option called Service Accounts. In Service Accounts, I just create a new service account here. And actually, yeah, it's a good thing that I came in here and these showed up. So this is the service account that I am using for the Cloud Functions. And this service account has the required permissions to start and stop the Compute Engine VMs in this project. And then this service account is the default service account for App Engine. And as I mentioned, I'm going to keep App Engine using this service account, although again you might want to reconsider, but in my case I will just keep App Engine to use this service account. But I will create another service account that I will name it just anything like App Engine Cloud Function Trigger SA for service account, or probably I can just add the SA in the start following my naming convention. Then the next step here is, first of all, I'll click create and continue, is to grant the service account the permission to invoke the Cloud Function. Now I don't want to do it from here. This will give it the permission for the whole project, but I can just click continue. and then I will just click done. This is if you want to add users to manage the service account. I don't want to do this. So my service account is created. This is the one, and let me copy the email here. So the next step for me here is to create the credentials JSON file. So going into the inside of the service account, actually just click on it. So this is the service account. There is a tab called keys. So when I go into this keys tab, you will see the list of the keys that are supposedly created for this service account, and this is a new one, so there are no keys. So I will click add key and then create a new key. The format is JSON, and then I'll click create. It will download the key into my own system, and then I can use it and put it in my application. Now the next step, to grant it access to invoke that cloud function, I will have to go to the cloud functions, which is found here under serverless. You will see now the two functions that I want to put behind the App Engine front end so that they can be invoked from that App Engine. Simply I will click the checkbox in front of each of these, and then I will click permissions, and I will add the principal here, which is my service account, and the role will be the cloud functions invoker. This will give this service account access to invoke these two cloud functions. So this step is done now. So we have created the service account and we have authorized it to invoke these cloud functions. Now the next step here is basically one of the very best practices, very highly recommended best practices that are always mentioned around in GCP, is to assign permissions to a group level. The reason is we want to avoid micromanaging users in GCP and micromanaging the permissions, especially if you have a large structure in your environment. So you don't really want to mess with the permissions on the resources directly. So basically you create a folder, for example, and then instead of assigning permissions to a user on this folder, you assign the permissions to a group, and then you add and remove users from this group, which will basically have the users inherit the permissions that are assigned on this group. And I will come back to this group later on. Just put a note on this one, because we will need this group later on at the very end of this, which is going to be used for the IAP, Identity-Aware Proxy. And in my case, following the best practices, I have created this group, which is called this very awesome and fancy name. And as you see, the group is still empty because I did not add any users to it. And again, I'm going to come back to this group later on. And now the step to deploy the App Engine and to upload all of this, code into this project so that we can secure our cloud function. So the first step for you here is to download the application package from the GitHub repository. And I have it for you here. So you just paste and go to this one. This is the repository for the code that we're going to use. And as you can see, it's a very small one. There are 3 files and the template folder that you will need to also download its contents. So actually, let me show you on my Visual Studio. So this is the the main.py application. And let me just quickly brief you about the structure of this. So as you see, it's a Flask application. It's a web application, of course, because we're hosting this on App Engine. And also it uses 2 libraries from Google so that we can create the object for the service account and the object for the actual App Engine API, or the actual Compute Engine or Cloud Functions API, so that we can invoke it and send the request to it. And there are 3 endpoints in this script. So there is the root one, which will give you the main HTML, which is basically the landing page. I'm just not going to show you the HTML code there. You will see it in a moment. And then the start VM, which will show you the start trigger for the VM, and the stop VM, which will be the trigger to stop the VM. And the lines 16 and 29 are the Cloud Function URL, Cloud Functions URLs that you're going to be using to trigger these functions. These can be retrieved from GCP. So in GCP, you go to Cloud Functions. Then, for example, start VM or VM start. And then you go to the trigger tab and you get the trigger URL. So these are the URLs that you'll need to use for your Cloud Function. Now, as you've seen in the templates folder, there are 3 files. These are the static HTML content, and also there is the credentials folder. This is the credentials.json file, and I have already downloaded this file and placed it here. If you download the code from the repository, you will not find the credentials folder, so you have to manually create it, then name it as the credentials folder here, and then put the JSON file inside it like this. Then we have the requirements.txt. This will list the required libraries and stuff that you need to include with this application. And finally, the app.yaml file, which is the core of this deployment on App Engine. So it defines the environment or the runtime, which is Python 3.8, and the handles, basically it's everything beyond the root path. So in order to prepare this to be deployed to App Engine, what you need to do here is, first of all, to change these URLs again, line 16 and line 29. Make sure you're using your own Cloud Functions triggers URL. Then the credentials file as well, make sure it's here. That's it. Now the application will be ready to be deployed to App Engine. So in order to deploy this to App Engine, first of all, you need to have a service or an application created in App Engine. Basically, this is where, let's say, the landing zone for the application where it will be deployed in App Engine. So to do this, you go to the admin console, to the Cloud console, then you go to the menu and then go to App Engine. In App Engine, you go to, or just click on App Engine, actually, it's faster. So it will show you this page or something else, but there is a button called Create an Application, because you won't have an application by default created when you enable the service of App Engine. So click Create Application, select the region and zone that you want, and select the service account. Again, I'm going to do the default service account. So in your case, you might want to do it differently, but then again, it's up to you. And that's it. It's going to take some time to configure the application here. Once it's done, you can then move to the next step, which is deploying the application. So the application creation is done. And here it's giving you some sort of a getting started tips and stuff. Basically, what I'm going to show you, it's very much similar to this. It's a very simple and easy deployment process. So this is where the need for gcloud will be required. And you need to make sure that you have gcloud prepared and authenticated, and the project, the destination project, is selected. And I have a video already on this, so that you can pause this video if you want to check that out. You can check it out and come back here and resume. The link for this will be on the top right corner of this video, and of course it will be in the video description as well. So once you confirm the status of the gcloud installation on your own system, again you can refer back to that video as well. All what you need to do is typing this simple command, gcloud app deploy. Now you need to be in the directory of the application. You need to be where the application or app.yaml file is exactly located. So if I do dir, you will find the application files, including the app.yaml file. So again, it's gcloud app deploy, and that's it. You press enter, the deployment will start. It might take some time. However, it's not going to take a lot of time because this is a very simple application that I have here. This is the confirmation that do I want to deploy this application to this specific project. I will click yes. Again, you can refer to another video that I have about gcloud app deploy for all of these details and information if you want to expand a little bit more on this. That's it. The application has been deployed, and you can check the status also on the Cloud console. So if I refresh this now, you'll see a different view, hopefully. although it's not showing that different view. But then when I go to services, you will find the new service that I have. So when I click on this default thing, it's going to take me to the application page. Basically, this is my control panel, the control panel that we will be using to start and stop the VMs. So if I click, for example, on start the VM, it will display the result now, which is the success of the operation. And this is a very long output, I realize this, but again, you can format the output and do whatever you want in the result or in the function of the Python script itself. But what I can show you here is the status of the instance is running. And if I take you to the the Compute Engine, you will find that the instance is up and running now. And yeah, so it's working as we want. The next step here is to apply the IAP on that script now, so that we can secure the VM and we can secure the whole script and the whole front end. So to do this, I can go to the menu, and then in the security, basically in the IAM and admin, there is the Identity-Aware Proxy page. And in the Identity-Aware Proxy, it's going to show me the HTTPS resources, including App Engine and SSH and TCP resources. Probably I'll have another video to talk about enabling IAP on the SSH and TCP resources. So going back to HTTP resources, this is the App Engine service that we have. You simply enable the IAP here, and it will just ask you to confirm. It will only allow access to App Engine by the principals listed in the permissions panel, which is fine. That's what we want. I'll click turn on, and you can see the status now. It's okay. It might take a few minutes to reflect, but if I refresh this, I'm not sure now if I will be able to. Yeah, so it has taken effect immediately actually. So I will need to sign in with the account now, and as you can see, this is the same title that we have added while we were configuring the consent screen. So if I open this from even a private window, actually let me get the URL for this. So if I open this from a private window, you see it's asking to sign into this page so that it takes me to the landing page. So let me sign in here. This is my account. I will sign in, but then I will get an error that I don't have access because my account is not authorized yet to use the application. So for the authorization part, I will select this App Engine instance as a whole, or maybe this one, if I want to specifically select a service or a version. But then I'm just selecting the whole service. In the permissions panel, I will click add principals. And again, going back to that best practices thing, I can either add myself here. This is my account. I can add myself here only as a single user and give myself the Cloud IAP Secure Web App user. Or I can just add my user into this group and give this group access to the IAP itself. And this is what I'm going to do. So I'm copying the email address of this group, then going back to IAP, removing my email and adding the email of the group, granting this group access to this application. And then what I need to do, I need to add myself into this group. So I'll click add members. Then I will add members again, adding myself. You can add groups if you want. So you can add sysadmins group as well. So anyone in this group will inherit the permissions that are added on this group, which in turn will let them access that application. But then just making it simple, adding myself here. So I have added myself in this group, and this group has access to this service. Hopefully by this time now the application will be updated. So clicking refresh, you can see now that I can access the application again. So when I click stop the VM, it will stop the VM and the VM will show as stopped. Let me just open a new tab here to show you the Compute Engine VM. Compute Engine. The VM is being stopped, as you can see in the status, and this one is the result of that stopping of the VM. Again, if I just take this URL, maybe I can just take it without the root. If I open a new window and when I click this, it's going to ask me to sign in to allow me to access that application or front end. Now, once you get to this point, I guess it is now all yours to expand and improve and enhance on this. There are really no limits to what you can do with this. There are a lot of options and a lot of possibilities that you can use this for. And for me personally, this is the starting of a more bigger and a more multifunctional control panel that I can implement on my own personal projects and probably can also introduce it on my professional and career level as well. So it allows you to do a lot of automation and a lot of functions, and it's really nice and really awesome stuff that you can do here. Now, one quick thing that you can do immediately is mapping your domain to the App Engine service. This will make it more friendly for your users to reach and access the application. Of course, if you want users to trigger this application, which is the point of doing this on an App Engine. And you'll also benefit from a managed SSL certificate that you can add on the domain. So to do this, simply you go to basically the App Engine. Going back there. So you go to App Engine, and in the App Engine menu, you go to Settings. In the Settings, you'll see a tab to map the domain, custom domains. So this is where you will add a custom domain. And basically, it's a process of adding multiple DNS records into this domain. Basically, they will give you 4 A records. You need to add them into your domain and then verify that mapping and just enable or activate the mapping. Once you do this, you will automatically get a managed SSL certificate based on the domain mapping that you have. So that's all for this video. I know it's been a long video, and hopefully you have used the chapters and timeline to navigate through the sections of this video. I hope that I did give you something new today and help you to learn something new today. If you have any questions or any concerns or any feedback, please don't hesitate to put anything in the comments section. I will be very happy to engage with you on anything. Also, please check out my other content and my other videos in the channel. And I have mentioned, the Google Groups, and I've done some stuff on the admin console here. This is part of the Google Workspace, and I have a lot of Google Workspace content as well if you would like to check this out. I have a course on Udemy that is about probably 30 hours or something about Google Workspace. It's a very detailed and a very comprehensive course that you can get all of the details that you need about Google Workspace. Check out the course. You can get it at a discounted price through the link in the video description. More feedback is obviously welcome about that course. Also, please don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Until I see you in a new video, thanks a lot and thank you for your time.